know sometimes I promise you just wanting to just have a very, very serious word with her children, because the levels of disrespect, I'm like, these children ain't got no manners. And someone needs to talk to them real quickly. My name is Sophie Hannah, and this is the Silly Chic vlog, which is a vlog all about film reviews and everything to do with films. So today I'm going to be talking about The Kindergarten Teacher, but just before I go into that, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. So just click the red button, which is somewhere down there. Please press like after watching if you do like it. Hopefully you love it. And also follow me on social media. So, getting on to The Kindergarten Teacher. It's a really interesting story just because I think this film was released at the beginning of last year. And then it was released in America towards the end of 2018. So I think about October time. And it wasn't actually released in the UK until February. It's a bit frustrating sometimes when films take a long time to come over, but I was looking for something to watch on the weekend, didn't really know anything about it, found it, and then I went to go and see it. So yeah, these are my thoughts about it. Firstly, the plot. So it's about a woman called Lisa who is a kindergarten teacher. She is someone who is just finding her life very unfulfilling at the moment. She has a husband, she has 2 children, she has a stable job, but she just really feels like there's something missing. She isn't fulfilled, like she isn't doing anything with her life outside of probably what a lot of people are doing. Having a husband, raising children, going to their 9-to-5 job. So she's doing a poetry class in the evenings where she's trying to see if she has any talent. She really doesn't. Like her poems are terrible. And it's really interesting because the class is kind of like, oh, but they're all kind of like, yeah, this is really terrible. But then she finds out that a boy in her kindergarten class, a 5-year-old boy called Jimmy, is actually a poet, a very gifted poet and genius level talent at poetry. And then she decides that she's going to mentor him. But it begins to get all a bit shady because this little boy that she starts to mentor, she then begins to live vicariously through him. By protecting or harnessing his talent, she feels like her life starts to become more interesting and that she starts to have more purpose and fulfillment. And then it's not so much about her mentoring him, I would say it begins to kind of turn into manipulation. It's a very fine line which I think she crosses with because it becomes a very inappropriate relationship. This film does border on the uncomfortable in moments when you're just kind of like, don't do it. Don't do it. In terms of the pros, now I think this film had a lot of pros. Number one being Maggie Gyllenhaal, who is the title character, the kindergarten teacher who plays Lisa. She's a very good actress. She is sister to Jake Gyllenhaal, who you might have known from Brokeback Mountain, Zodiac, Donnie Darko, and if none of those, he dated Taylor Swift. So that's his claim to fame, really. Maggie Gyllenhaal, she is just really the center of this film. The film really revolves around her and the little boy, but really around her characterization. You really sympathize with her, and I feel like you're going through this journey with her. You want to know what's going to happen. Like, is she going to get the feeling of fulfillment that she wants in her life? And I think in any film you have the main character, the protagonist, and then you have someone who is probably like the bad guy. And she is kind of both. And I think that's why her acting is so good in this, because it's a very fine line that she has to walk in order for you and me to feel, one, like we really feel connected to her, we really feel her plight, we really want her to kind of overcome and be something in her life, and also where you're kind of thinking like, no, what you're doing is dodgy though, like seriously, like this isn't good. And I really felt like that during the film. Let me move on to the plot, because that is the next pro that I'm talking about. The plot was just so good. You just never knew where it was going. And it's a fantastic story when you go to a cinema and halfway through you're just like, I don't know where this is gonna go. I'm one of those annoying people. If you go to the cinema with me, I'm gonna talk at the screen. Now some people kind of ignore me. A lot of people probably don't like it, but that's just how I interact with film. I'm like, don't go in there, don't do it. And I really felt that in this one, because I was just like, don't do it, don't do it, like it's not worth it. Not being able to know where the story's going really means that it's a really interesting and original script, and it really keeps you hooked. Which is really interesting because it's actually a remake from, I think, an Israeli film, but it doesn't feel like a remake. It doesn't feel like a knockoff of something else. Another pro is that this film just had some really great themes that it was talking about, and that were really interwoven throughout the script in the way the characters acted and represented themselves. And I'll talk a little bit later about some of those themes because I just think they were so subtle. So another pro would be the little boy Jimmy, who's acting, and just between Maggie Gyllenhaal, Lisa and Jimmy, there's this really great chemistry. And this film wouldn't have been successful without that, but I think they found a really great actor to do that, so you're really just 100% zoned in and really invested in how is this all going to turn out. Now, for cons, I would probably say there are very few in my opinion. The two cons that I can think of, number one, is that if you're someone that wants to have lots of action and like fight scenes and hurricanes and earthquakes, none of that really happens in this film. It's much more of a slow burner. It's very interesting, but if you're someone that needs to have like explosions every 5 minutes, then this might not be the film for you. Con number two, which I think is really a pro or a con, depending on how you look at it, is that it's an indie film or an independent film, which means that usually the story is a bit off center. Like things probably aren't as mainstream or as typical as you would expect in a film. Everybody doesn't walk off into the sunset at the end. In fact, it's kind of on a downward trajectory, and you just kind of know it. As you're watching it, you're like, this can't end very well. Kind of like, where is this gonna go? It's more like, how badly is this gonna go? So that could be a con for you, because usually an indie film has a slightly different perspective. And I think that's a really great thing about indie films, because you can get so caught up in watching mainstream films that you don't appreciate other films. So in this film, go out, appreciate it. Appreciate something completely different. Now, I think my main talking point for the kindergarten teacher are the things to take away. For me, it's just so many themes that talked about life and society and also yourself as a person. Like, I think it really spoke to who you are and what you need to be thinking about. Now, one of the major themes for me to take away is identity and this idea of, who am I? So Lisa is really struggling with who is she outside of being a kindergarten teacher or a mother or a wife. She just feels like, actually, I'm more than that. And I think that really resonated with me, because I feel like as you get older, as I'm getting older, like I'm out my 20s, now into my early 30s. As you get older, that's my point. As you get older and you get married or you have children, I've seen this with myself and my friends, you begin to think about, how do I keep onto my own unique identity? How am I still me? What do I have that isn't connected to my husband or my children? And that really spoke to me, because I think that's something that a lot of people go through in their life as they grow up, as they get married, as they kind of move on and develop and in relationship with other people. There's something inside of you that always wants to keep on to a part of your own unique identity. And this theme of identity really tied in with another theme: what happens when life doesn't go the way that you've planned? So Lisa is somebody who I wouldn't go as far as to say she had ideas of grandeur, but she thought that she was going to do more with her life. She'd studied, she'd gotten a degree, and she thought that she was going to be something special. And now she found herself living a life that probably a majority of her friends are. You're married, you have a regular stable job, you have children, but for her it's just like, this isn't the life that I expected for myself. And that really spoke to me, because I think the older that you get, you become very aware of, am I going in the direction that I want to go in? Is this the life that I wanted to live? Am I living the life that I always envisioned? And I really love when a film can really talk back to you in your own situation. Another great takeaway point that this film talks about was the idea of contentment. So I don't think in our society, tell me if you disagree, so this is just my opinion, in our society we don't really push the idea of contentment. It's much more about be more, do more, get more, and that's all completely fine. But in this film, she had a husband who loved her, children who loved her, even though sometimes, I promise you, just wanted to just have a very, very serious word with her children, because the levels of disrespect, I'm like, these children ain't got no manners and someone needs to talk to them real quickly. But this idea of that she had a loving family, she had children who loved her in her classroom, but it just wasn't enough. And she went to an extreme to try and find something that she thought was going to make her life better. I really thought this was a really great thing to take away from the film, this idea of thinking that the grass is greener, that there's something more than what I have here. Sometimes there is more. I'm not saying don't strive, don't be ambitious, but sometimes the reason why our grass isn't growing is because we haven't watered it, not because somebody over there has the magic ingredients to make their grass look better. Another point to take away was, whose responsibility is it? What I mean by that, in the film, Lisa puts a lot of expectations for her family to fulfill her desires. So her family pretty much feel like they're a disappointment to her. She's putting this kind of pressure on them to fulfill something in her. And as the children are getting older and her husband, it's just too much. And it really made me think about, sometimes are we putting responsibility on other people to fulfill something that's lacking inside of us? And I thought that was such a deep concept to see in the film, because it really speaks to, am I appreciating people, or am I wanting them to be something that they can never be? As in, should Lisa have just been appreciating her husband and her children for who they are, instead of trying to fill a gap inside of her? And I guess the last takeaway point was, the responsibility is yours. And it didn't even say it outright. I think it was much more subtle, because you could see the trajectory this film was going on. It really made me think we should be putting a responsibility and an onus on ourselves to achieve our desires and our dreams. It is no one else's responsibility to make us feel like we have a fulfilled life or that we've achieved our purpose. We have a limited time to be able to do all the things that we love and to make something of ourselves, if that's our desire, whatever that might be, or however success might look to us. I just really felt like this film dealt with some really deep issues, and I think that's why, for me, I just loved it so much. So who is this film for? Definitely not for children. If you have young children, I don't even think they can get into the cinema to watch this, number one. Number two, it is going to make them scared to go and see their own kindergarten teacher, because it's harrowing sometimes. You're just like, yeah, and it would scare them to death. I think this is also for people that are in the mood to think about a film, to think about the deep issues. If you're looking for something light-hearted that you can kind of toss away, this isn't really the film. It really stayed with me once I left the cinema, which for me is a mark of something being a really great film, because it's actually affected you in some way, and that's the best type of movie for me. You can definitely appreciate on the surface level, because it has a good plot, it's unexpected, you don't know where it's going, but I think you're going to get the most out of it if you really want to sit down and really think about everything that's going on and all the characters and whatever. In terms of ratings, what would I give this? So I give ratings according to burgers, as I told you in my last vlog, because I just love burgers so much. And I would probably give this, out of a maximum of 5 burgers, I'd give it a really strong 4. Like, this would be a burger that is delicious, that you tell all your friends about when they come to visit you. You're just like, we're gonna go to this burger place. And if you know me, you probably know I'm that sort of person. But this was a really strong burger, 4 burgers. I would definitely say go out and see this film. I think there's so much that people can take away from it. Yeah, that would be my thoughts on The Kindergarten Teacher. My next vlog is going to be coming on Monday, and I'm going to be watching something much more lighthearted. I'm going to be watching Taraji P. Henson in What Men Want. It comes out this weekend, so hopefully I'll let you know what the film is saying before you have a chance to see it, and let you know whether it's worth watching. But until then, don't forget to like, subscribe to my channel, follow me on social media. I really want you to come along with me on this journey as I watch 100 films in 2019. I think I'm currently at film number 10. So I'm doing pretty good, but I still have a lot to watch. And my leaving question would be, what is a film that you have watched that has not been able to leave you? That has just really stuck with you and really spoken to you? Let me know your answer to that in the comments, and thank you for everybody who is already commenting and really talking to me about film. I just love it, and I really want this to continue to be a place where film can just be loved as much as I love it. So I'll see you next time.